Christmas was always my favorite time of year. Not because of the presents or lights, but because, for a few hours, my family came together. There was laughter, tradition, and the warm chaos of my parents' house overflowing with food and half-argued board games. We weren't perfect, but there was something comforting about those annual brunches. Until last year. I'm a single mom. 2 kids, 1 job, no backup. It's not glamorous, but it's real. I get up every morning, pack lunches, do the school run, work all day, then come home and pretend I'm not exhausted so my kids feel safe and loved. It's not a sob story, it's just life. Last Christmas, we were at my parents' as usual. My sister Vanessa was in town. She flew in from the city, all designer coat and polished nails. Everything she said came wrapped in a smile sharp enough to cut glass. I'd brought a homemade casserole. Simple, affordable, warm. Vanessa sniffed at it like it offended her. Later, while pouring mimosas, she said loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Some of us had to work for what we have. Others are just good at surviving." Everyone laughed awkwardly. No one defended me. Not even my mother. I didn't cry. Smiled. But I left early, kids in tow, saying we were tired. That night I sat on the floor beside the tree, thinking maybe it was time I stopped hoping they'd treat me differently. We didn't get an invite this year. Or so I thought. Then, 3 days ago, my daughter came running in with a card. Vanessa's handwriting. "Come join us for Christmas brunch. Wouldn't be the same without the little ones." There was no mention of me, but they'd always invited us as a unit before. I took it as a peace offering, or at least a door cracked open. So I said yes. This morning I braided my daughter's hair, helped my son into his tiny red sweater, and put on my best dress. An old one, but it fit. I pulled my casserole from the oven, wrapped it in foil, and loaded the car. As we drove, the kids sang carols off-key and laughed. My heart was light, cautious but open. Maybe they realized how harsh they'd been. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe I was going home. We pulled into the driveway. Their house looked just like always. Cheerful, glowing with lights, full of laughter. I took a breath, grabbed the food with one arm, held my daughter's hand with the other, and knocked on the door. Seconds passed. Then I saw her, Vanessa, peeking through the curtain, meeting my eyes, and walking away. I stood there, holding a warm dish in my gloved hands, my daughter beside me tugging gently at the hem of my coat, my son bouncing with excitement on the icy step. The knock I gave was firm, cheerful. I even smiled. Through the frosted glass window beside the door, I saw movement. Then her face. Vanessa. Our eyes locked, just for a moment. Her smile was gone. Her expression wasn't surprise. It was calculation. Cold. She tilted her head slightly, then turned and walked away. No signal to hold on. No, just a minute. Just gone. A second later, the porch light clicked off. My daughter blinked up at me. "Mommy, is Aunt Vanessa coming?" I forced a smile so tight it hurt my jaw. "Maybe we got the time wrong, sweetheart. Let's just wait a little." But I already knew. I glanced at the driveway. My brother's car, my parents', a couple luxury SUVs I didn't recognize but had learned not to ask about. Someone laughed from inside. A deep belly laugh that sounded like our Uncle Jerry. Music floated through the walls. Muffled but unmistakable. Rockin' around the Christmas tree. They were all in there. Eating. Laughing. Warm. And we were not invited. Not really. I pulled out my phone with one hand, trying not to shake from cold or anger, and texted Vanessa. "Hey, we're outside. Should we come around back?" The message went, "Delivered." But no dots appeared. No reply came. Waited. Full minute. Then 2. My son was starting to fidget. "Mom, I have to pee." Of course he did. Course. "Okay, baby," I said, crouching to meet his eyes. "Let's head home. Maybe we missed the timing." He nodded without question. My daughter clung to the foil-covered casserole, not understanding what just happened but sensing the tension. I gently took it back, bundled it against the cold. I turned one last time toward the door. Still closed, still silent. My stomach clenched, But I held the pain down like I'd learned to do since I was old enough to understand how this family worked. Discomfort is brushed off, appearances come first, and if you're not part of the performance, you're left in the wings. But this wasn't about me anymore. My children had been made to stand outside in the cold, literally, while our family pretended we didn't exist. That's what cracked something open inside me. I helped my kids back into the car, buckled them in with gentle hands, and sat in the driver's seat staring at the windshield, heart pounding. Still no reply from Vanessa. They never intended to let us in. They wanted to be seen sending an invite to the kids, not me, but not deal with the reality of us showing up. As I started the car and drove away, the hurt settled deep. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Not in front of them. Vanessa was always the star. From the time we were little, she sparkled in every room. Blue ribbons, solo performances, compliments from every adult in the house. Isn't she stunning? So poised. Such a natural leader. And me. I was the quiet one. The helper. The girl who passed the scissors during craft projects, held the flashlight when Dad fixed the fuse box, and took the blame when things mysteriously went wrong. She's just being a big sister, Mom would say when Vanessa snapped at me or borrowed my things without asking. You know how strong you are. Just be understanding. That phrase haunted my entire childhood. Be understanding. When Vanessa started dating my high school crush, Jamie, it was framed as fate. You never even told him how you felt, she said with a shrug. Besides, he likes confidence. I remember pretending it didn't matter. I remember laughing at her stories about their dates like a good sport. But I also remember crying into my pillow, quietly, because anything else would have made me seem petty. Later in college, she visited my dorm and sat in on one of my project meetings. 2 weeks later, she submitted an eerily similar idea for her business class presentation, and won a scholarship for it. I confronted her. She gaslit me. Oh, come on. It's not like you invented community gardening. I told myself these were small things. Mistakes. I forgave her over and over again. 'Cause she was family. Because it wasn't worth a fight. Because that's what I was taught. Be the peacemaker, the forgiver. But standing on that porch with my kids, hearing the laughter behind the door she refused to open, something finally clicked. This wasn't a one-time cruelty. This was the pattern. The hierarchy. Vanessa could do anything, say anything, and it would be brushed off, excused, even admired. And me. I was supposed to keep taking it. Quietly. Politely. But this time felt different. Because it wasn't just me she humiliated. It was my children. My family, my home. And I was done being understanding. We got home just before 8. The casserole dish was still warm, its foil wrapping crinkled and untouched. I didn't have the heart to unwrap it. The kids were quiet, more tired than upset. They'd been promised cousins, cookies, carols. Instead, they got a cold porch and forced smiles. I tucked them into bed gently, brushing my daughter's hair back from her forehead, humming the lullaby she always asks for when something feels off. She didn't say anything about Aunt Vanessa or the party. Neither did my son. They were too young to name the ache, but I could see it settling in behind their eyes. After I closed their doors, I stood in the hallway for a moment, my hand still on the frame, listening to their soft breathing. Then I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sat down at the table. The silence in the house pressed in from all sides. Not the comforting kind. The kind that wraps around grief and forces you to look at it head-on. I pulled my journal from the drawer, leather-bound, the spine worn soft from months of use. I'd started it a year ago, after the first time Vanessa forgot to include me in a family group chat. I hadn't planned on becoming a historian of my own exclusion, but somehow I had. I flipped through pages of small hurts, birthday dinners missed, sideways comments, silences that were louder than words. Tonight's story fit right in. But this time, something inside me refused to stop at ink on paper. Opened my phone. Pulled up the photo I'd taken earlier, just before knocking on the door. My daughter in her red coat, grinning with wind-chilled cheeks. My son holding a handmade gift, proud and eager. They didn't know what would happen next. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not with sadness. With clarity. I opened my social media app and began to type. Not a rant. Not a plea. Just the truth. Tonight, we brought a dish and full hearts to a place we thought was home. The door didn't open. But that didn't take away our joy. These two deserved a Christmas filled with love. And they still got it because love lives where we make it. They didn't open the door. But we brought joy anyway. I hit post. My hands trembled. Not from fear but from release. I wasn't asking for pity. I wasn't starting a fight. I was telling my story out loud for once. And this time I wasn't going to apologize for it. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing non-stop. First I thought it was a group chat gone wild. But when I unlocked the screen I saw hundreds of notifications. Likes, shares, comments, messages. My post from the night before had blown up overnight. It had been shared by a parenting page, then reposted by a women's empowerment account. Strangers, mothers, daughters, even fathers, were flooding the comments, telling me they'd stood on porches too, that they'd knocked on metaphorical doors their families never opened, that they'd smiled for their kids while swallowing hurt. Some messages were long, tearful confessions from people I'd never met. Others were just simple. Thank you for saying it. I see you. You're not alone. I scrolled in disbelief, reading comment after comment until my eyes blurred. A message popped up from someone I hadn't seen since high school. Hey, I just read your post. I'm so sorry you went through that. You always had the warmest heart. Your kids are lucky to have you. More messages followed. From old friends I thought had forgotten me, distant cousins who had no idea what I'd been dealing with, even a coworker who told me her own sister had cut her off after their mom passed. And then, amid the flood of kindness, one name popped up like a stain. Vanessa. Real classy move. You made us look bad. Take it down. That was all she wrote. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. No apology. No hint of regret. Just anger that I'd told the truth. I stared at her message for a second, heart pounding, not with fear or shame but something sharper. Then calmly I opened her contact and hit block. Not out of pettiness but out of peace. Because I finally understood something. Telling your truth doesn't make you mean. Doesn't make you dramatic. Makes you free. For years I'd stayed silent to keep the peace, to be the bigger person, to avoid being labeled the problem. And for what? They still treated me like I didn't matter. But this time I didn't shrink. This time people saw me and they stood beside me. I walked into the living room where the kids were already playing. My daughter looked up, still in her fuzzy pajamas. Mommy, can we have brunch again today? With Coco? Smiled. Absolutely. Because in this house doors opened, hearts opened, and love didn't come with conditions. For the first time I didn't feel small. Felt seen. Some people think revenge is loud. They imagine screaming matches, dramatic walkouts and slammed doors. But real revenge, the kind that heals, is quiet. Soft power. It's what happens when you stop chasing people who shut you out and start building something that welcomes others in. A week after the Christmas post went viral, I bought a domain name. The idea had lived in me for a while, but the porch moment made it real. I called it Uninvited Motherhood. A space for women like me. Mothers, daughters, sisters, who had been excluded, silenced, or made to feel less than by the very people who were supposed to love them. I started simple. Post every Sunday. Recipes I'd made for holidays no one showed up to. Little stories of resilience. Like the time I fixed a broken faucet alone and cried after, not because it was hard, but because I realized no one was coming to help. Or the letter I wrote to myself on my daughter's 5th birthday, thanking myself for staying. Readers found me one by one. Some had been through worse. Some just needed to hear they weren't the only ones eating store-bought cake at a party no one RSVP'd to. Then one day I got an email from a local lifestyle magazine. They wanted to feature me. The uninvited one. They were doing a special on local voices reshaping motherhood narratives. The editor had found my blog through the viral post and said my writing had The kind of quiet honesty people remember. I read the email 3 times before it sank in. I agreed, nervously but with a full heart. The piece ran a week before Easter. The photo showed me in my tiny kitchen, stirring pancake batter while my kids made a mess behind me. The headline read, "She wasn't invited, so she built a table of her own." And that's exactly what I did. That Easter, instead of sitting around wondering who might text, I hosted my own brunch. I reached out in local mom groups, women's shelters, even the school bulletin. I said, "If you've ever felt like the outsider during the holidays, our door is open. Bring your kids, your stories, and your appetite." I expected maybe 2 or 3 women. We had 11, plus 15 kids. Some brought fruit salad. Some brought nothing but themselves. It didn't matter. My tiny house rang with laughter, mismatched chairs crammed around folding tables, kids darting between legs, and someone's toddler feeding chips to our dog. There was no formal prayer, but when I looked around, at the faces glowing with gratitude, at my kids passing napkins like it was the most natural thing in the world, I felt something sacred. Samira and Vanessa had their chandeliers and matching napkins. Had us. Later that afternoon, I stood in the kitchen watching my daughter show another little girl how to make a cinnamon sugar toast bunny. The sunlight caught in her curls and I felt it, the circle. Completing. Healing. Becoming whole. No doors slammed. No names dragged. Just love. Loud, imperfect, unconditional love. And in that moment I realized. This was my quiet revenge. It was late spring when they showed up. The kids were out back helping me plant tomatoes in mismatched pots when I heard the knock. I wiped my hands on a towel, already halfway to the door when I froze. Through the screen I saw them. Vanessa in a crisp cardigan and Mom, holding a gift basket wrapped in cellophane and nervous smiles. For a split second I thought I was imagining it. But they didn't disappear this time. "Hi," Vanessa said, trying for a light tone. "We were just in the neighborhood." She looked older. Or maybe just smaller. Mom stepped forward. "We brought a little something for the kids and for you. Thought maybe we could talk." I didn't say anything. Just stood there, my hand still on the doorknob. The gift basket had shortbread cookies, a small candle, and a card that said, "Let's move forward." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "We were wrong." Just forward, as if there hadn't been years of silence, judgment, and one locked door on Christmas morning. "We saw your blog," Vanessa said softly. "And the magazine article. You've done a lot." Mom added. "We didn't realize how much you were hurting. We thought, maybe it's time we start over." I let them finish. I didn't interrupt. I didn't roll my eyes or raise my voice. I simply nodded once, slowly. Then I smiled. But it wasn't the smile they were hoping for. "I appreciate the gesture," I said calmly. "Truly. But I already moved on." Vanessa blinked. "So you're not willing to?" "I'm willing to be civil," I said. "To be kind. But I'm not willing to pretend none of it happened. I'm not opening my door again just because it's convenient now." Mom's face fell slightly. Vanessa looked away. "I don't hate you," I added. "I'm just done begging to be loved on your terms." Behind me the kids were giggling, shouting about worms and watering cans. The sound reminded me what mattered. "I have peace now," I said, stepping out just enough to hand the basket back. And peace, once found, is something I won't trade for apologies that come too late. Vanessa held the basket for a second, stunned. Then I gently closed the screen door. Not slammed, not locked, just closed. No drama. No revenge. Just boundaries. They stood there for a moment longer before turning away. As they walked down the driveway, I went back to the garden. My son looked up and asked, "Who was it?" I knelt beside him, grabbing the watering can. "Just someone who used to live behind a door," I said. "But not anymore." This year the holidays felt different. Not because of grand plans or big gifts, but because there was no pressure to impress, no invisible scorecard I was trying to measure up to. Just me, the kids, and a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and burnt edges from cookies we didn't quite time right. We made our own traditions. Not the glossy kind you see in magazines. Ours were sticky, silly, and full of laughter. Mismatched ornaments, hot chocolate with way too many marshmallows, and holiday music playing off-key from a Bluetooth speaker that kept disconnecting. And it was perfect. We baked sugar cookies in the shapes of stars and snowmen that looked more like blobs. I let the kids decorate them however they wanted. Green frosting, red sprinkles, even cereal stuck to one. We danced while the oven heated up, giggling and sliding in socks across the kitchen floor. No one was watching. No one was judging. After they fell asleep that night, frosting still crusted in their hair, I cleaned up the kitchen, made myself a cup of tea, and sat by the window with my journal. I flipped back through older pages. Christmases past, tears I never showed, all the times I begged myself to be accepted by people who only opened their arms when it made them look good. Then I wrote. I knocked on that door thinking I needed them. But what I needed was me. I was never missing family. I was missing peace. And now, finally, I've found both. I closed the journal gently, lit a small candle on the table, and walked down the hallway. The kids were asleep, tangled in fleece blankets, faces soft in the glow of the string lights we taped to their headboards. I tucked them in, kissed their foreheads, and stood in the doorway for a moment longer, just watching. For the first time in years, I wasn't grieving an invitation that never came. I wasn't grieving a family that never showed up the way I hoped. I was home. Not because I'd been welcomed somewhere, but because I'd finally welcomed myself. 1 year later, our house is filled with warmth, music, and the smell of cinnamon rolls. The blog that started as an outlet now helps pay the bills. My kids are thriving, happier, more confident, finally free from the shadows we once lived in. Every Christmas we host brunch. The table is full, not just with food, but with people who know how it feels to be left out. There's always an extra plate. And as I watch my kids pass syrup to someone new, I smile.